Hello, my name's Duncan and welcome to Back Away from the Donkey and Bath Books. And this is part 3, the final part of my 55 books, greatest books of all time. Well, books I like a lot. And I've been doing 55 books because that sadly is my age and it's to sort of celebrate my birthday. So we're down to the final 15. On the other ones I said that they were in no particular order, they could have appeared anywhere. But what I'll say about these final 15, they are probably in the order that I would rate them, but that said that could change 15 minutes down the line. I am probably going to do this in a slightly different format, just to give me time to talk about the books a bit. There's a chance there may be a little bit of editing, but we'll just see how we go on the way I actually complete these. I have my list in front of me here, and that list I'm going to put the final link down. The list is on my Goodreads, so you can check it all out, and you can see all the books I've included. All these books, for various reasons, I would recommend to anybody who's a fan of them. And this book is it exclusively science fiction and fantasy now? You know, that's what I read most of. That one's not. But the rest of them basically are science fiction or fantasy. But hey, that's my sort of preferred reading area, but even though I do go off on things. So we will start with a book that is not science fiction or fantasy. It is by a science fiction author, but it's actually a normal one. This is Harlan Ellison, but this is Web of the City. Okay, this is not a science fiction book. It is a book about street gangs in Brooklyn. And the story is that Harlan Ellison went undercover and joined a street gang and then wrote a book about it. When he was apparently he finished 8 weeks, did they say on the back of here? A Brooklyn street gang called the Barons he did, and it's a story of what happened, or it could not be, but it's basically he used that as research, and then he ended up having to go into the army, and then he wrote this book there, and this was his first novel. This version, I really like the book. It's really well written. Well, you know Harlan Ellison. If you know Harlan Ellison, you know all his books are well written. He was probably one of the few people who could make a living just writing short stories, so he didn't do that many full-length novels, and this was his first one. This version is published in 1983, and I will tell you a story about this book. In the 80s and 90s, Harlan Ellison books were very hard to get hold of in the UK. They just didn't appear. Even I've got a couple that I picked up from secondhand bookshops at the time, which I did this one. This one I found probably the end of the 80s in a bookshop in Frome in Somerset, because that's around about there I was living. And what I will show you about this book is really cool. Inside it has a signature, and from my research I believe that actually is Harlan Ellison's signature. I've done some brief research before and it looks like it. So I'm pretty sure I have Web of the City, his first ever novel, signed by Harlan Ellison. So that's quite precious to me, that book, because of that. So yeah, so that is the story of that book. So that's number 15 on my list. I said it's not science fiction. I said his descriptions, I said, are very good. And Harlan Ellison, I could read anything he wrote really, because he just, as a writer, he could write, which is probably really weird and strange thing to say. So that one I'm not throwing on the floor, as I normally do. I am putting that one gently there. So next we have, Frank Herbert, The Jesus Incident. And this is part of the Pandora sequence. This is book 1 of the Pandora sequence. And I do love this cover. This was the UK cover. And I brought this on release. And this is a story about colonizing a planet. But the ship's computer is an AI. And it wants to be called God. And it wants to be worshipped. And then you have genetic engineering. And you have all the moral dilemmas to do with the AI. And I think they're really fantastic books. And it's co-written by Bill Ransom, who did lots of computer stuff. So It's very well put together. I think this is probably one of Frank Herbert's best. I haven't got June later on because I don't put June in. I do not think June is Frank Herbert's best novel, and it has quite perplexed me in the way in about the past 15 years it suddenly has come to the forefront of people quoting it as the best science fiction novel ever, which really confuses me. I quite enjoyed June, but I don't think it's the best novel ever. It's got some really good world building and it's quite an interesting story, but it doesn't feel like the best science fiction novel ever to me. And I know Frank Herbert did not write it with this idea in mind, and I've read quite a few interviews with him saying what he wrote it for, but no matter what all the June fanboys say, it is really a white saviour narrative, even though he didn't write it with as wrote it almost as a warning against leaders like that, but it does come across as a white saviour narrative. It's a good book though, but Jesus Incident is better. Go and read it. The second one is The Lazarus Effect, and the third one is, I can't remember off the top of my head. There is a book that comes before these, but it's not technically in this sequence. You can read these 3 books by themselves. So yeah, Frank Herbert, Jesus Incident. I'll plot that down on the floor there. We'll start on the floor now. And then we go to number 13, which is my favourite Bradbury, which is the Martian Chronicles, which is a collection of linked short stories all about the colonization of Mars, which you all probably know. Bradbury, you'll find a thread going through a lot of the books, especially the top ones I pick, is I love quite flowery and descriptive prose, and that's what Bradbury did well. And I said, this is gorgeous. If you've never read the Martian Chronicles, if you never read any Ray Bradbury, just read Ray Bradbury. But Martian Chronicles, my favourite of his books. I'll put that down there. Then we go to number 12, which is Roger Zelazny. Roger Zelazny, Doors of His Face and Lamps of His Mouth. I haven't got the copy of it here because I couldn't find it on my shelves, even though I've got it in. It's probably in a box somewhere. I found Unicorn Variations, which is another of his short story collections, which is well worth having. But Doors of His Face, Lamps of His Mouth, I do have a digital copy as well, and I was having a quick look at it the other day, and I've now started reading it again so I'm now reading too many books. But I discovered this book in the sort of mid-80s. I was at somebody's house and it was on their shelf, and the cover, which I will put up there, fascinated me. And the actual story of The Doors of His Face is about a bait man, somebody who baits, not hooks type things, on Venus, and they're hunting this whale-like creature that is huge. And Zelazny, like some of the other people I've said, his prose gets me. And I dream about those eyes. I want to face them once more. Even if their finding takes forever, I've got to know if there's something inside me that sets me apart from the rabbit. The notch plates are reflexes, instincts, and always fall apart in exactly the same way whenever the proper combination is spun. Come on, with prose like that, why would you not want to read this? Other stories in this collection is Devil Car. Devil Car is basically about sentient cars. They give cars a brain. It's post-apocalyptic, but some of the cars have literally escaped and they are wild. And this one guy, Murdoch, is hunting down the leader of them. Even through the dark tinted windshield and the thick goggles he wore, the glare from the fused plane burnt into his eyes, so that at times it seemed as if he were steering a very fast boat through the night beneath a brilliant alien moon, and that he was cutting his way across a lake of silver fire. Tall dust waves rose in his wake, hung in the air, and after a time settled once more. As I said, with prose like that, why would you not want to read this? A Rose for Ecclesiastes, another one of his famous stories about a man trying to communicate with Martians. He's the best linguist in the world. But they're all really, really good stories. And there's a reason why The Doors of His Face won the Nebula Award. So Roger Zelazny, I personally think that it's probably his novellas and his short stories are some of his best work. Everybody obviously knows the Amber Chronicles, but if you've not done it, do yourself a favour, read some of his shorts. Now we come to the next one, which is Helicona trilogy, Helicona Spring, Brian Aldiss. Beautiful tin white cover. This doesn't get talked about enough. I really don't think it doesn't. Helicona Spring is basically a planet. This planet has got some weird orbit around other planets and what have you. That gives the seasons take centuries, and we just follow the rise and fall of the seasons in the planets, where parts of it are deadly, parts of it not. Civilizations go up and down, and it's just it's incredible the way it's all put together, and not enough people talk about it. So do yourself a favour, if you like brilliant worlds and brilliant descriptions, Brian Aldiss is your man for that one. So my next one, sorry, I jogged the camera. My next one, I don't know why I put the book over there, is Robert Holstock's Mythago Wood. It's there. And basically there's this, it's very fairy tale like. It's about this wood that has animals and things on it that people don't understand. And there's this draw to the wood. I don't want to give too much away. Just read Mythago Wood, Robert Holstock. And it's one of these fantasy books that people need to talk about more. Robert Holstock, great writer. So next we go to, turn over the page. We're down to the top 9. Dayworld, Philip Jose Farmer. This is probably my favourite of his sequences, even though he's written probably better, but I like this one. It's about a world in the future where people only stay awake for a day. They get into cryogenic freezing or some such thing for 4 days. They live 1 day every week. They call it being stoned, which is quite funny. But yeah, and this is following one guy who is a daybreaker. He lives from 1 day to the next by being different people. And he's also what is known as one of the policemen at the time. And it's following his journey. And he has some other secrets that are going on as well. So yeah, just the whole concept. The concept of staying awake for 1 day all the time. And there's just it's just Philip Jose Farmer. I don't think I made clear what I was describing then. Sorry, there's something weird going on outside. It's late in the afternoon I'm recording this. But yeah, Stay World, Philip Jose Farmer, next one. I probably could get things better editing this. So next we go to Man in High Castle. You knew there'd been a Philip K. Dick. Probably my favourite is it's quite straightforward for him as well. It is an alternate reality where the Nazis and Japan have won the Second World War. And there is a book going around called The Grasshopper Lies Heavy, which is like an underground book which has got secrets in it. And it's the explanation for this. But as with all Philip K. Dick, at one point it goes really weird. But I prefer... probably people think, oh, you're a Dick fan, so why is not Androids Doom Electric Sheep here? Which I really love as a book. I think High Castle's probably better. And... not that Do Androids Doom Electric Sheep is bad. But that is my favourite one of his. And if you've not read it and you like alternate histories, read some Philip K. Dick. I think you should all read Philip K. Dick, because I think he's a great writer, no matter what Steve Donahue says. So next, we come to one of the obvious ones, a biggie. The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien's Hobbit. What can we say about this? Not much, but I will show you my beautiful version, which I'm not sure why I've not put protective cover on this yet. This is Alan Lee illustrated version. I've got a couple of paperback versions. I found this in a charity shop just pre-COVID, and it cost me 50 Scottish pence, and it is beautiful. It has got, let's get you some of the gorgeous Alan Lee illustrations on this, in perfect condition. I do need to put a cover on it to protect the cover. All these beautiful Alan Lee illustrations. Okay, and see what other pictures I can find for you. see if I can find one Smaug. Oh, there you are. This is one of Smaug. I said gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. That only one. I said it cost me 50p, and I cannot believe I found it. I'm going to gently put that down somewhere. I'm gently going to put that over there because I'm not throwing that on the floor. So, after The Hobbit, we have Clifford Samac City. A story that concerns the fall of mankind, basically. And it's got dogs in it, it's got robots, and the story's told by the point of dogs about this mythical creature of man. And it's all separate, linked stories with the narrative of the dogs in between it. Plays, as I always say, plays fast and loose with evolutionary biology, but if that's what worries you, you've missed the point of the book. And it's just a beautiful book, and for some reason it gives me a warm feeling in my stomach whenever I read it. And it should be read at least once a year, I think. Next we have The Year of the Quiet Sun, which I've only read for the first time this year. Wilson Tucker's. I am doing a video on this, which is going to hopefully come out the back end of the week. I keep on promising it, but I'm really partway through recording it at the moment because I'm doing one with a little more editing. It is a post-apocalyptic, time travel-y thing, and you're going to have to watch the video for me to tell you much about the plot, but let me tell you, I believe it's a masterpiece, and I cannot believe that it's not really spoken about as much today. But we have Wilson Tucker, Year of the Quiet Sun, gorgeous Peter Ellison painting on the front. And yeah, so my video should be up at the back of the week. So, next thing we have, the next biggie, Whole of Lord of the Rings. I've got several versions of it. These are my favourite paperback versions, which are Collins Modern Classics ones, because I just love the art on them. And that's The Fellowship. I just thought I'd show you my favourite versions of them. And The Two Towers with Nazgul on the front. And then we get The Return of the King. All at minus Tirith. Those are my favourite paperback versions of it. I've got no fancy hardback versions of The Lord of the Rings for some reason. Probably money. But those are my favourite paperback. I've got about 3 or 4 paperback versions, which who hasn't? Who hasn't? After Lord of the Rings book, for some reason I couldn't find it. John Wyndham, They're the Triffids. This is post-apocalyptic. Plants take over the world, but it is, for me, one of his best books, probably his best book. I read it, when did I last read it? A couple of years back. And to me, it still feels like it could be set anywhere time-wise. Nothing that really makes it stick out, set at a certain period of time, which I think really shows how well the book's aged. If you want to see the best adaptation to it, there was a BBC series at the beginning of the 1980s, starring John Duttine as Bill Mason. And that is bar the fact that the actual trivia look a bit weird, that to me is the best adaptation. And the copy of the book I have is actually the film tie-in. I know people, the TV series tie-in ones, which I'll put a picture of it up there so you can see it. But that is the version of the book I've got. But it is a great book, and it should be read by everybody. So we're now down to number 2. And number 2 is another biggie. I'm going to count the whole thing. Isaac Asimov Foundation. Future history of the falling empire. The TV series on Apple bears no relation to the books at all. So if you're watching that and you've not read the book, it bears no relation to it at all. I can tell you that. There's, I don't know how many books are in it. I picked up some of them. This is Foundation, an old pamphlet version of Foundation and Empire. I've got a copy of my second Foundation. Got another copy of Second Foundation with Chris Foss cover. Foundation's Edge, which came out in '83, I think. And that's I don't know how much we got for the first book there. But yes, Isaac Asimov Foundation. One of my favourite books of all time. Favourite series of books. Lots of men talking, smoking cigars and talking in darkened rooms, but just the whole of the ideas behind it. Just stunning. And when you get onto the things like the mule and have you, and all those little bits there, which I think is in Second Foundation or Foundation Empire. Can't remember. It's incredible how it all interweaves. I know later on he tried to connect it all in with the robot books and that sort of worked and sort of didn't work. But I always get a bit annoyed when people start trying to connect series. But that's just me. And next we come to the biggie, my number one, which is probably I've said the word probably too many times in this, but I think it is my favourite books of all time, which is Gene Wolfe, The Shadow of the Torturer, the Book of the New Sun. I picked up, I've got several copies here. I've got the Fantasy Mastery Works when for some reason they put the 4 books into 2 volumes, which is Shadow of the Torturer, Chlora Conciliator in book 1, and The Sword of the Lictor and the Citadel of the Autarch in the 2nd volume. The best versions which I've got, which I brought when they came out, are for me, are the ones with the Bruce Pennington art. I've only got the Chlora Conciliator here. But if you've not read them, he's another person with beautiful, beautiful prose. And if you read, the first time you read the first book, The Shadow of the Torturer, it is what is going on. And I think, having set the scene, it is meant to be a memoir that somebody finds thousands of years in the future that they have translated. And the translation is meant to be partially not wrong, difficult because it was a language they didn't understand. So some of the words that are used in the description may not mean what you think they mean. Also, the main guy, who's Severin, who's the Guild of Seekers of the Truth and Penitence, who's a torturer, starts off his story that he let somebody go that he should have been torturing and gives them mercy, and he gets not thrown out of the guild, but he has to go on a journey, and it's him going on this journey. So it's very hard to describe, and as I said, it's meant to be his memoirs, his account of his journey. As you come along, he keeps going on about how he has perfect memory, but later on you realise that he is slightly an unreliable narrator. So you've got the translation bit from the future, which may not be entirely accurate. You've got him as an unreliable narrator, and so you've got all that going on. So you have to read stuff in between lines, and it can get, things leap out to you. Nothing is obviously said. You find out things that, I was trying to do it out there. Certain characters you go along and then you find out something weird about them later on because it's not said straightforward. It's a set of books that every time I reread them every few years, and you always find something that you've missed, something that's fantastic in there. Gene Wolfe is just was a master of his work, and that to me is probably the Book of the New Sun. The whole of the Book of the New Sun is probably the pinnacle of his works. I've got, some of his other books, but to me this is his pièce de résistance, his Lord of the Rings. So if you've not read it, but if you don't like flowery prose, probably wouldn't read it. I understand why people don't get on with it. I totally get that. But I think everybody should read it at some point, because otherwise you do yourself a disservice. And I probably have not done it justice in my description of it, but let's just say it is, in all likelihood, my favourite book of all time on this day, the 1st of October, which is when I'm recording this, of 2023. Ask me in a week's time, it might change. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed my 55 books that I picked. I said I picked books that I loved, that if my house was on fire and I could grab some books, those ones I'd happily grab and live the rest of my life rereading. And that's all that I've done. I've not picked books because they're popular, because they're deemed worthy or anything like that. These are just books that I love and have read. Most of them I've read numerous times. Anyway, I will speak to you all very soon. I said not the review, my talk about the Year of the Quiet Sun is going to come out. I said back of the week, so towards Friday, hopefully, once I put it together. I'm now losing my voice a bit because I recorded another video earlier today, and I will speak to you all very soon. And I said, I hope you enjoyed this. Bye-bye.